The federal government is reversing a Trump-era immigration policy that severely restricted humanitarian protection for survivors of violence. Attorney General Merrick Garland revoked the policy Wednesday, citing an executive order from President Biden. It calls for officials to determine whether current asylum policies provide refuge to victims of gang and domestic violence, quote, in a manner consistent with international standards. As CBS News reports, Garland's decision to reverse the legal opinions of the previous administration could pave the way for a broad shift in American asylum policy. Joining us now with more on his reporting is CBS News immigration reporter Camilo Montoya-Galvez. Camilo, welcome. Thanks very much for joining us. So what Trump-era decisions did Attorney General Garland overrule, and what was his justification for doing so?
Hi, Elaine. Some of our viewers may not know that the Attorney General here in the United States has an important role in the implementation of U.S. immigration policy. Not only does the Attorney General oversee the nation's immigration courts, but the Attorney General can also issue precedent-setting decisions that govern the adjudication of asylum cases before U.S. immigration judges as well as asylum officers. So that is an important power that the Attorney General has here in the United States. In 2018, then Attorney General Jeff Sessions used that power to say that victims of domestic violence and gang persecution generally would not qualify for U.S. asylum. He categorized those types of violence as private criminal acts and said that they did not merit asylum. Just a few days ago, Attorney General Merrick Garland overruled that decision by Sessions and said that that language was broad and that it threatened the case-by-case nature of asylum adjudications. So now victims of domestic gang violence and gang persecution will be able to potentially obtain asylum here in the U.S. in a way that they were otherwise ineligible for under the previous administration. Merrick Garland also reversed an opinion by former Attorney General William Barr, Elaine, that basically said that asylum seekers could not request asylum on the basis of persecution that stemmed from their membership in a family. So some asylum seekers claimed that they were persecuted because they were part of a family. And so that decision was also overturned. And as you mentioned at the beginning of the segment, this could have wide-ranging implications on U.S. asylum policy because many Central Americans, Elaine, cite domestic violence and gang persecution in the asylum cases they file at the U.S.-Mexico border.
Well, the administration also announced another effort this week that aims to slow the flow of migrant children coming to the southern border. Camilo, what's the latest on children being held in detention facilities, which drew so much criticism?
Sure. So President Biden ordered his administration to quickly reinstate the Obama-era program known as the Central American Minors Initiative. This is a program, Elaine, that allows immigrants with legal status here in the U.S. to petition for their children to come to the U.S. legally. It was portrayed as an alternative to children making the dangerous trek across Central America to the U.S.-Mexico border. It was seen as a way to stem the flow of unaccompanied minors reaching U.S. soil. The Trump administration terminated that program. Now the Biden administration has reinstated it, but it has also expanded it to include parents who have pending asylum cases, as well as those who have pending applications for U visas, which is a protection for victims of serious crimes who assist U.S. law enforcement. So now there is this expanded pool of prospective applicants who will be able to petition for their children to come here to the U.S. legally. But it is important to note, and this gets to your second question, Elaine, that only fewer than 5,000 immigrants were resettled under this program since its inception in 2014. So that program is unlikely to have a meaningful impact on migration flows to the U.S.-Mexico border unless admissions are quickly ramped up. Right now, there are about 15,000 children in U.S. federal government custody. Most of them are being housed by the Department of Health and Human Services, which has to place them with sponsors here in the U.S. About 700 of those children, Elaine, are still stranded in Border Patrol custody. This is an agency that is a law enforcement one and that is not supposed to house these minors, as you know, beyond 72 hours.
Right, something that I know you've covered quite extensively. At the same time, Camilo, we're seeing a number of Republican-led states take matters into their own hands to address what they see as inadequate border security. What can you tell us about that?
Sure. So, for example, just yesterday, Texas Governor Greg Abbott, a harsh critic of the Biden administration's immigration policies, announced that his state would plan to erect border barriers along the U.S.-Mexico border on state and private land. He said that he has already directed the hiring of a program manager to oversee the project. He said that he will divert $250 million in state funds towards this project and actually allow private citizens to donate money towards the effort. He had previously also announced that he will be expanding state detention capacity to detain migrants who are apprehended by state authorities for crimes like trespassing. And Florida Governor Ron DeSantis, another Republican critic of the Biden administration's immigration policies, has said that he will deploy state law enforcement from Florida to Arizona and Texas to help them deal with what they see as a crisis at the U.S.-Mexico border. And this comes after Governor Abbott had already announced that he is looking to remove the state licensing of shelters that house unaccompanied migrant children in federal custody. So all of these actions, Elaine, raise legal questions about what these state authorities can actually do because, as you know, border security and immigration enforcement are federal legal responsibilities.
All right, Camilo Montoya-Galvez for us. Camilo, thank you very much.
Thank you, Elaine.